Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I'm Daz. I've got Steve with me. Not as always because he wasn't with me the last interview, but he's here today. He's back,
kids.
and he's back without a scarf that would probably be falling off the wall by now.
That's right. I'm trying to make this professional looking.
You're doing a good job. And we welcome back a friend of ours. He was here a month ago, and he was co-author with Mr. George Scott with the Lost Shankly Boy. And now he's got a brand new book out. It's number 3 in the Red Odyssey edition. And it is, where's he gone? Where's Steve gone? He's gone all dark.
Got to read the book.
And the book is called Champions Under Lockdown, Red Odyssey III, and Jürgen and the Holy Grail. Hiya, Jeff. Nice to have you back.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. The temperature's kind of gone down in Texas, about 10 degrees, which is good. It feels like winter.
We're
now.
having a little bit of a mini heat wave. It's about 20 degrees here.
Oh, man. Everybody walking around in the swimwear.
That's right, yeah. We've tempted to have a barbecue if it wasn't for COVID restrictions.
Yeah, but as soon as you get the barbecue out, it starts raining.
That's it.
Well, welcome back. It's good to have you.
Oh, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Let's talk about the book first, and then we can talk about what happened yesterday.
Okay.
So give us a rundown then.
Okay, so essentially what I've tried to create over the last 2 or 3 years is a social history of Liverpool Football Club. Started with Red Odyssey, which was the first in the trilogy. Red Odyssey celebrated 125 years of the history of Liverpool Football Club. And I chose to do it in a particular format. I chose to do it with 125 individual stories from 1892 up to 2017. And that seemed to be quite a popular format. People really liked it. And the idea of covering the club, both in terms of what happened on the pitch, but also in terms of what was going on in and around the club and the supporters, seemed to resonate with people. So my original plan was that I probably wouldn't write another one until the 130th anniversary, but Jürgen Klopp had other ideas, and he won the European Cup and then the Premier League. So that's meant there's been another 2 volumes released since the first one, and they really are, just trying to paint a picture, hopefully for future generations as well as fans today, of the social history of the club, a history of the people and the stories around the club. So Champions Under Lockdown just happens to coincide with the most remarkable season in the history of British football, in fact probably in the history of world football. And actually it covers both, pre-lockdown and the magnificent march of the Reds, who sailed to an unassailable lead. And we didn't know it at the time, but they'd actually won the league before lockdown. They could have actually lost every game after lockdown. They'd still finished champions. And sort of how great that side was, and then juxtaposing that with the trauma of lockdown and the trauma of COVID, and kind of touching on some of the social implications of that for the club and for the city more widely. And then obviously it ends perfectly with the resumption of football and the magnificent trophy win, the first league title in 30 years. So hopefully what I've done is created a record of the season that'll stand for many years to come.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll be writing one every year then.
That would be nice. Well, actually, maybe not for the family.
well, hopefully not. Lockdown Part 2.
Oh no, what I meant was, yeah, no, absolutely not. What I meant was, I tend to disappear into my cave when I'm writing, so they may or may not be happy with that. I don't know.
Probably not. You stick your head out the door. Make sure that they're still in the house. So what was your obviously thought process of bringing this book together, because it does encapsulate all this season. I mean, especially the lockdown. So what were your thoughts like? Did you put it into a different narrative each chapter?
So yeah, so writing the book's actually quite an organic process. So I didn't actually set out at the start of the season with the intention of releasing a book at the end of the season. I kind of collected stories as the season progressed. So, if there was a significant game, a memorable game, I'd make notes about that, and sometimes those notes would become what eventually would be the chapter around that game. If there were incidents off the pitch, so for instance, I do cover some of the controversies surrounding the club. So I cover the attempt by Liverpool Football Club to trademark the word Liverpool in the context of football. I cover the Fairlow controversy. So it was kind of just collecting stories as the season went on, always with the idea that they might come in useful later. So it might be that I write the book in the 130th anniversary or at some point in the future. But then once the season gathered momentum and it became really clear that Liverpool were having the season of, the greatest season in their history, arguably, then the kind of momentum behind it built, and I kind of had a conversation with the publisher. And what was interesting about it was I was actually also writing The Lost Shankly Boy with George. So George and I were working on The Lost Shankly Boy at the same time. I kind of contacted the publisher and said, look, I've got this idea. It's probably insane, and you'll probably tell me not to be ridiculous. But I've been collecting stories, and I actually think I could probably get a book together at the end of the season as well. It looks like we might win the league. I would never have confessed that to anyone, because I think this was probably just after Christmas. And I never said that to anyone else, but I said it to the publisher, who's a Brighton supporter. And he agreed we were going to win the league. And he said, no, we'll get it out. If you can do it, do it. So sort of after Christmas, it gathered momentum, and I realised I'd have to, start working towards having 2 books out. So the thought process was the same as with We Conquered All of Europe and the original Red Odyssey book. It was to kind of document the history of the club from the perspective of the people and the perspective of the city. But then I started to realise it was about more than the city, really. It was about more than Liverpool. And actually it was about this global fan base that we have now that grows exponentially every year. And so what I've been really delighted to do with the book is to include the thoughts and feelings of fans from all over the world, from Austin, Texas, to France, Germany, Australia, India, Malaysia, Scandinavia, obviously Britain, Ireland. All fans from all over the world have given me their insights and their thoughts and feelings about what this Liverpool team and this title means to them. So I think it is quite, hopefully it's quite a rich tapestry, really, that people will really enjoy and will resonate with them. There's bound to be lots of books written about this league title, but hopefully this one's got a bit of a unique selling point in that it's actually told from the perspective of the people.
Steve?
Hey, Jeff, thanks for coming on. I know you already mentioned George Scott, but we just want to tell him hello and glad that he's back at home recuperating after his surgery. So that's good news for all of us that are fans of his and are looking forward to reading the book that you guys collaborated on. So
he needs to change those blue socks.
Yeah,
no, I know George is. I am really grateful and really buoyed by all the well wishes and the messages that he received while he was in hospital. I know he kind of, maybe he's hinted he had a bit of a rough ride there, but he's back fighting strong. I spoke to him only the other day via video link, and he's looking almost back to his best, and he just needs a couple of weeks, I think, and he'll be back to his old self.
That's great news. I wanted to ask you, on your first book, it went from the beginning of Liverpool Football Club to 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
And then your second book, you went back to 2015 when Klopp first came. So from the first book to the second book, was there a lot of information that you had learned that you were able to include in the second book that you didn't have in the first book?
It was more a case of writing the first book. It wasn't, certainly with the history of Liverpool Football Club, you never find yourself thinking, I haven't got enough material. And it was more a case of, I'd made a decision it was going to be 125 stories to celebrate 125 years, and there were tons of stories that never made it into the book. So when the second book came out, that gave me an opportunity to go back to 2015 and tell some of the stories that never made it into the first book. So there's no repetition from one book to the other, but what I've done is maybe filled in some of the gaps I would have liked to have done with the first book. And yes, to answer your question, yes, because writing it in 2017, the Klopp project is only just starting to evolve, isn't it? But then 2 years later, you've kind of got a little bit more of an insight into his methods, a little bit more of an insight into what he was planning. And also, his plans are starting to come, well, they're not starting to come to fruition. They have come to fruition. So that kind of give it an extra bit of depth, but also a bit more interest, really. And also what was interesting is looking at in the afterword from Red Odyssey, looking at some of the comments I'd made about players in the squad. Like I think I mentioned Trent Alexander-Arnold. And then by 2019, Trent Alexander-Arnold's become a hugely significant figure in terms of the club. So, it was quite a nice progression, really. And then hopefully this one feels like that. I mean, there's a slightly different angle in the new book in that, we delve a little bit more deeply into the sort of social commentary than we did in the first two books. But I think that was necessary. You couldn't have ignored it. It's part of what accompanied this season, really.
Well, I think that also because Klopp is more entwined with the fabric of the community versus some of the coaches prior, I think it's a great topic to discuss and kind of delve into for people that, don't live in Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bond between Klopp and not just Liverpool supporters, but with the city of Liverpool, it is reminiscent. I think we touched on this the last time I was on. It's kind of reminiscent of the bond between Shankly and the city and Shankly. And there is, although, you might not get any of them to admit it publicly, but there is a grudging respect from Evertonians towards Klopp as well. And sort of his letter that he wrote to the city of Liverpool after they won the league, in which he addressed Evertonians too, I think was remarkable, and I think is emblematic of the man and his relationship with the cities. And there's nothing fake about that for me. There's nothing manufactured or, it's not an act. I think there is a genuine connection and a simpatico between, Klopp and the sort of culture of Liverpool as a city.
I think we kind of saw that same kind of attitude with Henderson's letter to Lovren that just here last week, right? So.
Yeah, and again, Henderson is a northeast lad, working class community in the northeast of England, really does get, and his work he does behind the scenes in terms of helping out local charities and food banks, really does get, that kind of working class solidarity, community spirit that Liverpool's all about. And I think that runs right throughout the club.
Yeah, it does seem like that. It seems like every podcast we really kind of extol the virtues of this squad, and they're not going to just go buy somebody just to buy somebody, but they're also they're looking at character of the player as well. So I think that kind of bodes well for the future of the team too, and its standing with the community. But back to the book, I want to ask you: did you find that as you've gone from book 1 to book 2 to book 3, has your access to the team been easier to get, stories from people?
Absolutely. So, writing the first book was involved an incredible amount of work, an incredible amount of, digging, research, emails and phone calls and text messages to people without reply. But sort of, I think that's just really about, earning your stripes. That's just about, trying to gain a reputation as someone who's credible, and I sort of think I've done that now, and I do get, you know, I don't have unrestricted access. I'm not going to claim anything like that. Certainly not the access that an accredited journalist would get, but you know, people more willing to speak to me now than 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, they're not slamming the phone down.
Well, no one's ever been that rude. It's more of just not replying. Who is this? Who is this man?
Not him again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, then he just says he's George Scott.
Yeah, I do. That's what I do now. It opens so many doors. Yeah. No, but also writing for this as Anfield did help as well. So I was really lucky to get access to. I did a 3-part interview with John Barnes. Did a similar one with Jamie Carragher. Kind of interviewed some of the older players from the past. I was absolutely delighted to be able to talk to Johnny Wheeler and his daughter. And so, yeah, writing for This Is Anfield, the work's out there for people to look at, and they can see that I'm a person who, you know, I will write critically about the club if I feel I need to, but I'm not someone who's got an agenda or an axe to grind or anything like that.
So can you repeat where we can access those articles? Because obviously we had John Barnes here last fall, and, you know, with all the anticipation to get him here, then the night was just so short. You know, he only spoke for like 30 minutes, and you know, John Barnes, he can speak forever if he had the luxury of time to do that. So
yeah, sure.
Where can we
find
find
John
those?
Barnes is such a fascinating guy, very, very intelligent, articulate guy. Can talk not just about football, on which he is absolutely fascinating, but can also talk obviously about politics and race and so on. You'll be able to find those articles on This Is Anfield. So if you go to their author page and search for me, they'll be there. If you Google Jeff Goulding, John Barnes interview, they'll probably pull it up. It'll be easy to find.
Yeah, good. I look forward to doing that. So I know you're a season ticket holder there at Anfield. Any updates on how the season's going to be with fans, when that's going to happen, and how the prospects are of even yourself getting to see any matches?
So things aren't that clear. What is clear is the club has suspended season ticket renewals. So because they don't know when fans will be allowed back in the stadium, they've taken the decision, and I think they've engaged with supporter groups on this as well. They've taken the decision not to ask fans to renew. They will be. I think the assumption is they're working on 12,500 people being allowed in late October, and they haven't made it clear. They haven't decided, I don't think, on how they're going to distribute those 12,500 tickets. And they've got a problem there, because the same problem they always have, in that Anfield can't hold enough. Anfield doesn't have the capacity to hold or to meet the demands that there is for tickets. But they're going to have an even bigger problem now, because I think there's probably in the region of 30,000 season ticket holders, and they're going to have to make 12,500 tickets go a long way. So it's going to be complicated. I mean, we've got the added complication in the UK that we're now starting to see tangible evidence of a second spike. So we've had, I think on Friday, we had 3,500 new infections in 24 hours. Merseyside as a region is on COVID watch. So there's the possibility of another lockdown, a local lockdown, which would obviously impact potentially on any attempts to bring supporters back into the club. So I'm not optimistic, if I'm honest, that we'll see fans in the stadium this side of Christmas. I'd love to be wrong. And I certainly don't think we'll see full stadiums until very late in the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just, it's the same everywhere though. People have just relaxed too much, and half of them think that they can go about their day, with not taking measures. So yeah, I don't think October 24th they were saying. I just don't see it.
That's right.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Maybe January. Try again. But yeah, you got to look after the fans. But yeah, I don't know how, if it does happen, how they're going to choose the 12,000. It's just
the only way it can happen is ballot, isn't it? The only way I see it happening is by a ballot, like a cup final ballot. And almost whatever the club does, they'll upset someone or some group of supporters. I just hope if they do a ballot, it's done transparently, openly, and as fairly as humanly possible. And 12,500 tickets, 54,000 seats a stadium, they're not going to keep everyone happy. There's just no chance.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Obviously, yesterday was the beginning of the season. And, normally you would be there at Anfield watching the game. So that had to be a kind of a bittersweet moment to know that this season's starting and you wanted to be out there as a champion, right?
That's right, absolutely. Winning the league without being in the stadium or without being able to see the team lift the trophy was bittersweet. There was the vague hope that we might be there for the first game of the season and we might be able to see it paraded around the pitch. That evaporated very quickly. But yesterday was a perfect day for going the match. It was absolutely, the weather was fantastic. And it was almost painful to watch, and I think a number of the journalists who've covered the game have made the point that, seeing both teams run out to no reaction, the champions of the English champion, the Football League, and the champions of the Premier League running out to Anfield for the first game and no supporters there is really, really painful to watch. But as everyone has said, rightly so, safety has to come first. It's frustrating because the advice that we're getting in the UK, and I know there may be similar concerns and similar criticisms of the advice you're getting from the centre in the US, is so contradictory. People are being encouraged to go to restaurants. They're being given discounts at restaurants. People are being told they can go to pubs and bars to watch games, but they can't go to a football stadium and watch a game. And I'm not suggesting we should all be allowed back into the stadium. I don't think it's safe to do that at all. But it's very confusing for people. The advice is very contradictory. And that just adds another layer, really, to the sort of frustration that people feel about it.
Especially yesterday when it would have been such a historic occasion with us having won the title and also Leeds coming back into the league after so many years. And so that it was just one of those perfect games that would have been set up for such a magic atmosphere.
Fortunately, the players did us all proud, didn't they, on both teams? They gave us what was wasn't really good for the heart and the blood pressure, but certainly for, in terms of entertainment value, that was an excellent game. The players gave everything on both sides, I think. And I think much has been made of our defensive slips and our defensive woes, but I think you have to give Leeds a lot of credit. I think Leeds pressed really well. They forced us into errors, not just in defence, but in midfield. Mm-hmm. And when they won the ball back, they got forward in numbers. So it was almost like a game we would have watched Liverpool play a few seasons ago in Klopp's first season when they were hunting down in packs and winning the ball back and bombing forward. And it was very much like watching Liverpool in 2015, 2016, wasn't it? So yeah, great game of football entertainment.
Oh yeah, kudos to Bielsa for not just sitting back and just trying to minimize danger. He came out and attacked, and from all accounts, that's the style that they play. And so it'll be an interesting season with them because we know that the first game doesn't really mean a lot for the promoted clubs. It's a long season, so
yeah, absolutely.
Watching the game yesterday, obviously without the fans, these teams that are coming now to Anfield have got to be thinking, with no fans, no fear factor anymore,
Yeah, I think for a number of reasons, this was always going to be a difficult title defence. I know Klopp says we're going to attack the title, we're not going to defend the title, but this was always going to be a difficult title defence. We've got the absence of supporters, and I agree with. I think the point you're getting at is that, you know, Liverpool, more than probably any other team, draws a lot of energy from the supporters, even the away supporters. You know, when Liverpool travel away, the away support is phenomenal. I mean, you can always hear them. And, you know, they're really passionate and really loud and inventive and creative. And so Liverpool draws a lot of energy from that. And, you know, the absence of fans does give the away team, they must be relieved. They must be looking at that and thinking, oh, thank God we haven't got to play in that atmosphere. So Klopp and the players have got to find another way to motivate themselves. They've got to find another way of overcoming that. But then on top of that, you've also got the fact that teams have probably sussed us out now. They know that a lot of our creativity comes from the wings, and you know they're going to try and deal with that, aren't they? So Liverpool are going to have to try and maybe evolve again. They're going to have to try and evolve their tactics and their strategy again. And then also you've got you know what is going to be a very congested season. You know, I think Klopp made the point that, you know, he's got more games than available training sessions, so there's not a lot of time for him to work on this evolution. They're going to have to really. So this might, you know, if Liverpool manage to do it again, it might be yet another remarkable achievement in the teeth of, you know, real complex challenges, and be all the greater for it. Just hope that we're back in the stadium by the end of the season, and we can give them the acclaim that they deserve, you know, for what they've achieved.
You know, you touched on 2 points there, Jeff, is that the first one, you know, without the fans at Anfield, you know, we have the second longest unbeaten streak in Premier League history, you know, chasing Chelsea's obviously, which is still mind-blowing to me how they went all that time without, you know, a loss. But if they can continue that type of run without fans at Anfield, it'd be totally remarkable, because you know, we get so much energy from them, especially late in the game. You know, the mentality monsters, that's when it comes out in the last 10 minutes and injury time, especially at Anfield. So that'll be something to see if that's a streak that can be held, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing I'd say about that is you know, they kind of covered this in Red Odyssey 1 and Red Odyssey 2, is you know, the cop and the atmosphere at Anfield's been famed for many, many years, but we have to acknowledge that, you know, it went through a bad spell. It went through, you know, the atmosphere at Anfield in the early days of the Klopp regime, you know, wasn't great, and Klopp had to chastise us for that, didn't he? Mm-hmm. You know, we kind of started to develop a bit of a reputation for getting frustrated, and I think even Raheem Sterling, when he left and he went to Manchester City, made the comment that, you know, the fans put extra pressure on the players, so he saw that as a negative during the Rodgers period. And so I think what's happened under Klopp is that it's turned from that pressure that the fans give the players, has turned from a negative to a positive, and it's actually negative for the visiting team. And we're also a lot more patient now than we were prior to Klopp arriving. So, you know, the game can be heading into the last 5 minutes and we can be a goal behind, and you are almost utterly convinced that we'll still have time to turn it around, you know. So absolutely, I think it's been a huge factor in Klopp's rebuilding of Liverpool. And if they're able to maintain things without that, because that's definitely given them an extra 5-10%, if they're able to maintain that run, then that will be remarkable. That'll be yet another sort of barometer of just how good they are.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you still have like players like Mane, who's never lost at Anfield, right? And he's been on the squad for 4 years. So definitely a remarkable endeavor so far. And your second thing that you had mentioned right there was about not a lot of training. Klopp mentioned there's not a lot of training sessions. But I think that is actually an advantage to this Liverpool squad, having the same players. We're not integrating 6 or 7 new faces into a system and trying to figure out what's everybody's best way to be productive. And I think that's lost in a lot of people's mindset then when they see oh, they're spending money over here, they're spending money over here. We haven't spent any money, haven't we? We have a team that knows what they're doing, the responsibilities. And I think, especially in this season when everything is so congested and they're not going to have a lot of that practice session time, I think that's an advantage to us, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right, to be honest. I think the thing about Klopp, and I think the angst that we see on social media around, us not being very adventurous in the transfer market and people looking enviously and jealously at Chelsea and others, kind of misses the point, really. It misses the manager we have, the coach we have, is a big proponent and a big believer in development. Mm-hmm. So he believes in taking what he's got and developing it into something special, into something that actually is why he came to Liverpool and didn't go to Manchester United or any other huge club. He came to Liverpool because what he saw was a sleeping giant that he could turn around and he could work with what was already there and add to it as the seasons progressed. And so I think for a number of reasons, one reason being Klopp likes to keep a group together. He believes very much in the group mentality, the team ethos. You see that on and off the pitch. So there was a fantastic documentary on LFC TV called Coaching Champions. And it really looked at the backroom staff. It looked at the backroom staff at Anfield. Everyone from, the sports scientists, the coaches, the physiotherapists, the medical people, to the women who greet people as they come through the door at Melwood, to the women who work in the canteen. And what you got from listening to those people was how much they felt part of the project. No matter who they were in what part of the club, they felt like they were part of this project. They were contributing to getting Liverpool to win the Premier League and the Champions League. And so you only get that with continuity. You only get that feeling with togetherness and people staying together, that you're not going to jettison them halfway through their development to bring in a player for £150 million. That if there's a great kid coming through the under-23s who looks like he's got what it takes to make it, then you're not going to block his development by bringing in a player on £300,000 a week. And I think that breeds loyalty as well. So the players will all run through brick walls for Klopp because they know he's got their back. And if they work hard, he'll stand by them. And I think he's done that throughout his career. And so I'm not surprised that he's not... There will be players he wants. And if he had a blank checkbook, there would be probably a player he would sign. But I think he fully gets that Liverpool aren't Man City and they don't have a blank checkbook. And I think he's fully prepared to work with what he's got. And if no one else comes in, then he might be disappointed, but he won't moan. He'll get on with it and he'll work. And I'd much rather win leagues like that than do what Manchester City have done, with no disrespect to Man City fans. But I'd rather Liverpool won the league that way than they went out and just, bought all the best players in the world.
I think that's, not what Chelsea are doing, because most of their new signings are pretty young. 20. Well, Havertz is 19, and then Werner, But yeah, I mean, what's the point of having a youth academy or under 18s, under 21s if you're not going to start bringing the best through? You might as well just shut shop and just have the first team and that's it.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And, when we all knew like Lallana was leaving, the first thought player in my head was Jones to replace him. That's it. But, people don't think like we do. They think, he's gone. Lallana's gone. We've got to get, a £50 million player to replace Lallana. And Lallana barely played. So why would you spend 50 mil on a player that's, and the wages as well? So, yeah, I mean, even the 17-year-old lads, Billy, the 6'10".
Goliath, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Klopp's letting him have a taste of it, because obviously Klopp sees something in him. So he's like, come with the first team squad, get that, that feeling, and go back, work hard, and maybe a year or two, you'll be in the first team squad.
Yeah, and I think that approach is beneficial also, because if you don't have an unlimited budget, then it allows you to, every few years, go out and spend big on a position that is a really problematic position for you, where you know you need the best. And so the evidence for that is that when we've needed to, we've gone out and spent £65 million on Alisson and £75 million on Virgil van Dijk. So, and another thing, I mean, Graham Souness has said frequently recently, and I can kind of see his point. The time to buy players is when you're winning things. The time to reinforce is when you're winning things. And he pointed to the past and said, you know, that's what we always did at Liverpool. Well, yes and no. We didn't go out necessarily and buy the finished article. You know, when Paisley bought Ian Rush, he bought him from Chester. Mm-hmm. And paid virtually nothing for him. And he spent a couple of years in the reserves. No one had heard of Ian Rush before Bob Paisley bought Ian Rush. And there's many, many players like that. Liverpool have broke transfer records down the years. But, you know, the art of going out and finding a future superstar has been lost in today's Premier League. And I think, you know, Klopp, you know, when Klopp bought Salah, there were few people saying he was going to be the player he's become. When Klopp bought Sadio Mane, there were few people saying he would become this world superstar. When it was Rodgers who bought Firmino. But, you know, when Klopp brought in Gini Wijnaldum, you know, who'd have predicted when he came in that Barcelona would be interested in the player, and that people would be devastated at the prospect of him leaving. So we've rediscovered, if you like, that ability to find players that are about to become great. And we can get them at a reasonable price. And I say reasonable price, of course, we paid over £30 million, which is a lot of money. But in today's standards, it's a bargain, isn't it? So, yeah, I think I don't get, I mean, I don't get the angst that there is around this. What we have the champions of England, champions of the world. We won the European Cup the previous season. This is a great, great, great Liverpool team, and too many people want to jettison players in this team to bring in the next new shiny thing, and I just don't get it.
You know, yesterday was very, I think, symbolic that Curtis Jones, not only was he on the squad, but he also was the first sub coming in, he came in to the game, and, you know, many managers would not even have him in the squad, first of all. But to bring him into a game that you're really up against it, you know, shows a lot of confidence that Klopp has in him, and I think that the teammates have in him. But also sends the message to those other guys like Harvey Elliott and Vandenberg and Nico that, hey, we're going to get a chance. You just keep working against this first team and practice every day. So I think it's great to see that kind of, especially Scouser, right, to come in.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic to see a local lad making the breakthrough, because he's kind of living all of our dreams, you know. But, you know, he came on, he replaced Henderson, didn't he? So he replaced the captain in midfield, which was a problem area in the game. And, you know, he didn't let the team down at all. He came on the pitch and actually looked absolutely in the right place. And so, you know, there's another one. There's the next local lad to become a superstar, in my opinion. We've got Trent, and I'm absolutely convinced if he stays injury free and keeps his head together, then he's the next scout superstar in the Liverpool team, without a doubt.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I found it funny. You know, obviously you try and stay away from social media after a match. No matter these days, even if we win. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
Basically, I'm hearing the defense has gone to shite, and that we need reinforcements. And my mind just blows. I mean, this defense have been amazing for 2 seasons. That all of a sudden they're shit. Just like, come on. Like,
it's insane, isn't it?
It is. I mean, yeah, maybe we do need, you know, to dip into maybe for a fourth centre back. But I mean, we're fine. I just think people just need to take a big deep breath and go, we're going to be all right. You know, I mean, there's still, you know, a couple of weeks to go in the transfer business. So, I mean, I even think that, you know, Klopp's thinking about probably trying to get Wilson out the door, you know, maybe even Brewster. But he's not going to get held ransom either, you know, because I guarantee other teams are waiting till the last day to try and go, all right, here's 12 mil instead of the 20. I mean, like Klopp said, he'd rather keep him.
Mm.
You know, they're not going to lose money on a player that they think is valued.
No, I agree completely. And it's not just the youngsters, is it? I mean, we've got Shaqiri there, hasn't he? You know, who I was delighted when we got him. He's not made the impact I thought he'd make. But, you know, and there's Origi as well. So there's two players there that, you know, I'm sure if someone came in with a serious, substantial bid, those two players would go. But likewise, if anyone tries to get them on loan at the last minute or tries to undervalue them, then I have no doubt in my mind that we'll just say, no, it's okay, we'll keep them. Mm-hmm. You know, they'll serve us in the squad, and they will serve us in the squad. I mean, Origi has been a great impact player, hasn't he? And I don't know what the problem with Shaqiri is, whether he doesn't like what's demanded of him in terms of running back and he's not that type of player, or whether he has got injury problems. I'm not really sure. But you know, if we couldn't find a buyer for him, I'd be absolutely delighted to see him stay.
I mean, there's not a lot of people buying out there. That's the thing. You know, you see one team buying all these players, and you think that's the standard. But if you look, even Man City's only bought one player. Yeah, Man United has only bought one player. So I mean, you have to frame it. You know, when we say we've lost $100 million or pounds this season or this year already, that's not just peanuts. You know, that's real money. So it's always funny for people to say, don't worry about it when it's not their money, right? But it's somebody's money. It's not money you're getting back. So it's not. So anyway, well,
I'm no businessman, but you can't run a business by saying, you know, it's only 100 million.
Right. Well, I mean,
and you get that, don't you? Just pay the extra 5 million. You see people posting on social media, well, you know, it's an extra 5 million. No, absolutely. You're right to say that lots of clubs are keeping their powder dry. And these are very uncertain economic times, aren't they? So, no, it doesn't surprise me at all that Liverpool have been quiet.
Yeah, because I mean, every match at home that we don't have fans, £3 million gone. And I think, like both of you say, people don't really think about they're going, well, where's all this money that we just made, 175 mil for well, that pays bills, that pays wages, that pays, you know, for the complex at Kirby, that pays for, you know, just everything. They just don't really and I think unless you're a business owner, you're not really going to understand where this money's going, you know.
No, absolutely.
And
the other factor, of course, is that the other teams that are spending money, the Chelseas, Everton, have spent a fair bit of money. Mm-hmm. They're spending money because they've got to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
spending money because if they're running to stand still at the moment. They're trying to, you know, Everton are trying to break into the top 6. Chelsea are trying to push for the top 2. They've got to spend money. Liverpool won the league by 18 points. Now, I'm not suggesting we should rest on our laurels, but that at least gives us some breathing space. It at least buys us the ability to look around and only spend money if we absolutely have to on a player that is absolutely going to improve the team. Because if you spend, I don't know, if we'd have bought Timo Werner and we'd have spent all our money on him, he wouldn't have started every game because he wouldn't have been a significant improvement on our front three. We'd have still been starting with Mane, Salah and Firmino. So that's the context Liverpool are operating in, and we should be shouting that from the rooftops. This is what we've wanted for decades. We're now in a position where we're the hunters rather than the hunters, and we can actually be canny about this instead of being reckless in the transfer market and making mistakes because we've got to.
You know, I think a lot of people don't realize that we did have the second highest wage bill in the Premier League. which is kind of flies under the radar because we have that wage structure and we don't pay that the big weekly wage. We have a lot of people that are making a fair wage, and I don't think people just realize that our wage bill was that high in relation to our revenues, which is it's the highest ratio out of all the top 6. So that's another factor that kind of gets overlooked in that whole thing. And even with the Thiago, I mean, we've seen that it takes a few months to bed into the system for Klopp. So if you buy him in October and he takes until January to come in or to really get acclimated to the squad, right? Because you don't have the training sessions that we've already referenced. You can get him on the free in January. So, just for those 3 extra months, that's 35 million pounds, right? That's a difference. So there's a lot of the factors, and it's not as easy as let's go buy him and just open the checkbooks, I think. So it's fascinating to me. All of it's fascinating. So
well, and also, I guarantee 50% of the people didn't even know who Thiago is or was. That's the thing. I didn't really know much about him, but the media, once it gets a name, it'll roll with it. And to me, like we were talking with Neil Jones, that's not what Liverpool do. That's not what Michael Edwards has done. He doesn't put a name out there. Liverpool usually go under the radar. I mean, look at Costas. No idea, and they're saying pretty much Jamal Lewis was the second choice, and then Costas obviously came. But yeah, I mean, again, people just need to take a deep breath, step back, and go, we're the champions of everything. Well, not the Champions League anymore, but yeah, bastards.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're all right. We'll win it again this season.
Hey, Jeff, I wanted to go back to your book a little bit. You posted a picture online of your book next to George Scott's book, in your collaboration. That had to have been a great feeling to see that in the bookstore. Oh,
that's incredible. It's overwhelming. I don't think I'll ever get used to that, really. The part of the joy of, writing online is great, and seeing your words online and seeing comments under an article you've written and so on. That's great. But when you see this physical object that you've produced with your name on it, and you see it on the bookshelf, and I had a great experience when Red Odyssey came out. That was the first book I'd ever published. I went into Waterstones on the day of publication, because I wanted to take a picture of the book on sale in Waterstones. And as I walked in, some guy was taking it off the shelf and walking to the counter with it. And the wife was with me, and she said, "Go and tell him it's your book." And offered to sign it. And I was thinking, what would that look like? Some stranger walks up to you and says, "That's." I just hover around bookshops waiting for someone to buy the book and then offer to sign it for them. But yeah, no, I went into Waterstones at the weekend, and because they've got a fantastic Liverpool FC display in Waterstones in Liverpool city centre. And I went in there, didn't expect to see George's book. It's not officially out till next week. Mm-hmm. Not only did I see George's book, but I saw George's book next to my book on the shelf, and that just gave me goosebumps, chills. And I knew that it would cheer George up, so I immediately sent the picture to George.
That was a great picture. I just imagined that both of you guys were just, so happy and exhilarated for each other too, having worked together and becoming, better friends as this process has gone on. And I was happy for you guys. We've just met you a couple months ago. I'm like just as happy as you were seeing those books there, right? So, and I texted that picture to Daz. I was like, look at all these Liverpool books, not just your guys, but look at all these other titles. They're like, man, we need to reach out to all these authors and get them on the show, and let's learn some more stories.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I tweeted the picture of their display, and Waterstones Liverpool actually replied to it and said, the guy who set the display up is an Evertonian. Can you imagine how painful that was for him?
You sure it's not just the book cover and maybe like a porn book inside, right?
Pages ripped out.
That's right.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
redacted version. Everything that says Everton is redacted in those books.
Just red shite all the way through it on every page.
Well, you should have gave him a signed copy of your Stanley Park book. Then you could have made amends.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I wanted to write that for, to be fair to both sides of the Stanley Park divide, and I actually think I did a reasonable job of that. But I went to sign some copies in a local bookshop, and I said, hopefully this will do well because it'll appeal to both sides. He went, nah, you'll just piss both of them off. Yeah, so it's always a bit doing a book like that's always a bit of a gamble, but that was a labour of love, Stanley Park story. That was a kind of my attempt at writing what I've always wanted to write, which is to write a novel. So it's kind of a historical novel, really. So I'm really proud of it, but commercially, it's probably not the most successful piece of work I've done.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that. The writing has become a passion, for you. So, hopefully you find the successes with these books that are out. And a lot of times people read an author's books and they'll go back and find out, their books that they've written. So you may get a second wave of fans that are going back to read the fiction stories too. So that'd be
hopefully, yeah.
Well, Evertonians have been reading fictional stories for a long time.
Yeah, I'm probably not doing sales of Stanley Park story an awful lot of good right now.
But Jeff, I saw that one Evertonian lad did a really good review on yours, and fair play to him.
Yeah, I was delighted with that. Yeah, and I have, to be honest, he's the only one who's actually put his name to it and said, I thought it was a really great book. But I have had other Evertonians contact me privately and say, I read that. And no, seriously, privately, yeah, because they didn't want to publicly commend a copyright. But my father-in-law's do, and we have some fierce banter, as I'm sure you can imagine. And he does not like Liverpool at all. But he read the book, and he lived through the period that the book covers, and was at some of the games that are covered in the book. And what he told me was that it was very authentic. He said I wondered how you'd worked out that that's what it was like, and it felt like I was reliving things that I'd experienced. So, and he said there was a little bit of it from his perspective. He felt it was a little bit biased, but he could live with it. And so yeah, so I would, if there's ever any Evertonians tuning into your podcast right now, I doubt it. Go out and buy Stanley Park story.
There we go. Hey Jeff, you I know that since that book just came out and you don't really have content for another book yet, but you had just collaborated with George Scott. Do you feel that might be something that you might pursue again, to collaborate with somebody or ghostwrite for somebody on a book?
So I'm going to give you guys an exclusive now. And I've cleared this. I'm okay to tell you. You guys had Kieran Smith on a previous podcast. Kieran Smith, a fantastic Liverpool FC historian, runs the Liverpool FC historical group on Facebook. Kieran and I are collaborating on a book which will be out next June.
Yes, you cheeky monkeys. So that was what Kieran was hiding.
What was he saying?
Well, no, he said he's got some big project he's working on, but it's top secret, okay. and he couldn't say anything. So we thought he was, doing his website and everything, but man, brilliant!
I remember him saying that now. Yeah. No, so what we're doing is we're going to collaborate on a book. So next year is going to be the 21-22 season will be the 100th anniversary of a Liverpool side that became known as the Untouchables. Mm-hmm. One of the greatest Liverpool sides ever, with some of the most iconic Liverpool players from history in it. The great Elisha Scott, Tom Bromelo, Bill Lacey, Walter Wadsworth. These were incredible men who went on to win back-to-back league titles for the first time in Liverpool's history. But there was all sorts of intrigue and all sorts of interesting avenues and angles in terms of the stuff we've uncovered as we've done research for the book. But the other thing that's remarkable about this team is they were the first team after the First World War, and many of them had served in the First World War. Some of them had served in some of the most brutal battles on the European battlefields, and came home and were part of a team that went on to dominate English football for 2 seasons, which was no mean feat at the time. But then they overcome another major crisis in that midway through the second title win, their manager left. And so they appointed someone who was a director who'd been a former Liverpool player to take over as manager, and he went on to win the second league title. So this is a fascinating story, and Kira and I are well into the research phase of that, and we have an agreed pitch publishing now, and the book will be out in June next year. So that's the next project and collaboration. And I've got to say, I'm absolutely delighted to work with Kieran because he likes the research.
Yeah, he does.
I find the research really hard work. I do it because I think you should, and you have to be thorough and rigorous. But, Kieran will happily spend 4 hours just to find one article that's significant, whereas I prefer getting down and writing the story. So it's kind of a match made in heaven from that respect. So really enjoying working with him, and I hope the book will be a fine tribute to a great Liverpool team.
Yeah, we can't wait. I mean, it's interesting that, it's a small world. We had him on, and it was kind of by chance that we found him and his Facebook group, and then kind of just developed into having a friendship with him. And then obviously you and George come on. So yeah, we're so excited to hear these type of endeavors, come in and just getting different perspectives. Because as you've mentioned before, the history of this team is so vast, and your first book couldn't cover everything. Your second book couldn't cover everything. You had to go back and kind of develop more stories for those 5 years. But even that last year's book, the book that's coming out for last year, 5 years from now, if you had to go rewrite it again, there'd be so much more information. So it's great that, especially Kieran, who's such a top lad, that he cares about Liverpool, immensely, and just telling the stories the proper way and being factually correct on everything. It'll be exciting. Yeah, we wish you guys all the luck with your processes for sure.
Thank you. What we want to do really is we want to bring these people to life, because these historical figures, they built the club. They had lives, they had families, they had experiences prior to playing for Liverpool. Some of them, had huge challenges in their lives. And they had really colourful careers for Liverpool Football Club. I mean, Walter Wadsworth, for example, was a latter-day Jamie Carragher, climbed into the stands at a football match and punched a supporter in the face because he was insulting him. Another player in a game later on in his career threw mud in his face, and he knocked him out, and he ended up getting banned for 8 games. These are really another guy was world boxing champion of the British Army. He won a heavyweight boxing championship when he was in India as part of his military service. These are really incredibly interesting guys, and what we want to do is bring them to life for Liverpool supporters so they can really kind of revel in our history, because it is a magnificent institution in Liverpool, and it's got an unbelievable history as well. So yeah, we hope to bring some of that storytelling flair to it as well. So it's not just going to be a history book with facts and figures. It's going to be the story of these players' lives.
Yeah, we can't wait. Just knowing both of you guys, we know it's going to be a top-notch, project. So the on this book that's coming out, that's we pre-ordered, and we're not going to get it for a little bit. But is there can you kind of share maybe one tidbit that's in the book that a lot of people would find they don't really know about?
Is this George's book?
No, your book.
Champions Under Lockdown.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So with Champions Under Lockdown, I think the thing that I think people will find most interesting about the book is it's written with an awful lot of first-person perspective. So I think what I've tried to do in all of the books is take the reader right into the centre of the action, really. So whatever's happening is to kind of create that complete experience of being part of the events that I'm describing. So, we have first-person perspective from myself, from the games. So we've got all the significant games covered in terms of what happened during the game, but the atmosphere around the game, the mood around the game, any of the key stories that we're building, what other teams were up to at the time and where we were in the league. We've got some of the off-field stuff covered in there with views and perspectives of other supporters, other key figures in the game. I've got input from Liverpool Football Club, from former players and journalists, supporters from around the world. So the book is hopefully a complete social history of last season. And if you were to see, one of the things that when you write historical pieces, you really are digging and searching in the archives to try and get a feel for what it was like. And I hope that anyone picking up this book will really get a feel for what it was like to travel with Liverpool on that journey last season. Every little detail and every little avenue covered, and sort of the emotions and the general atmosphere and feel of it all. Hopefully I've captured that, including the celebrations, muted as they were for some. I've kind of covered the whole thing.
Were you in the book? Do you have the World Club Championship covered in the book?
Yeah, so
Okay.
So the Community Shield's covered right at the very start. The pre-season's covered. Interestingly, there were mutterings and rumbles throughout the pre-season last year where people were saying Liverpool weren't ready. It didn't look like they were good enough.
Right. We only spent £1 million.
We just needed to spend more money. Yeah.
Right.
And then there was talk about Harvey Elliott. He was described as the guy who would make the breakthrough. Very few people were talking about Curtis Jones.
Mm-hmm.
In fact,
Right.
no one was talking about Curtis Jones. And then, we've got the Community Shield covered. We've got the Super Cup covered. Interestingly, again, I covered the Norwich game and some of the mutterings around me in the Kop. Leaving the stadium and listening to people complain that we switched off in the second half. We only won 4-1. We let them score a goal. We shouldn't have let them score a goal. So all of these kind of themes that we're seeing now, were there right at the start of last season, and what a glorious season that turned out to be. So so all of that stuff's in there. The World Club Championship is in there. Got some great insights and commentary from Ross at Red Men TV, who went out to cover the game. So some of the little side stories that you won't have had unless you were out there. Yeah. He's been very generous in sharing those with me. And so there's lots of stuff like that throughout the book. It's not just my perspective, it's the perspective of supporters who travelled with the club all the way through the season. They've shared these little stories and anecdotes with me.
That's fascinating to me, just because, we had played Monterrey in the semifinals, and, we have a big Hispanic contingent right here in Austin and in Texas in general. And, it had a different kind of vibe about that game, just because, there were a lot of national pride, right, for the Mexican nationals to see how they could play against the almighty Liverpool. So it was a fascinating as a social commentary for that game, and then obviously the final itself, against the Brazilian teams. And when we have so many Brazilians on our team, so I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one to write. And what was fascinating, what comes across from Ross's stories, is his admiration for the fans of the South American clubs, but also what a big deal this was for the Brazilians. I mean, the game they beat us in the 80s, they beat us 3-0. That's still one of the greatest games in their history. They still talk about it now. And they'd gone out there, with the intention of reclaiming that glorious history. It was a really big deal for them. And it's such a shame, actually, that in this country, the World Club Championship's only just starting to take on significance. For many, many years, it's never been viewed as a really big deal. In fact, Liverpool refused to participate in it a couple of times back in the day, and don't think they took it very seriously when they did play. But thankfully, it is now starting to be seen as a serious competition, and rightly so. We should give respect for those teams in South America who take it so seriously and are so passionate about it. That comes out in that chapter, I think, really, hopefully, really well.
Right.
Yeah, I after Liverpool played them, they had some scenes in Brazil, and people were crying, literally bawling. That's what it really meant. And I'm sure, like, if we wouldn't have got to the final, most people would have just gone, okay. So it's a totally different, like, over there. I mean, obviously, same passionate fans, but just they were more into winning this than I think a lot of Liverpool fans were.
Yeah,
I'm going to go on.
Would see themselves as champions of the world, rightly so. If they'd have beaten us, that title means a lot to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to go on record and say I'm a big fan of the Brazilian fans during every World Cup.
Yeah. No, the passion is unbelievable.
Yeah, they always have a good time, it seems, no matter where they are in the world.
Jeff, I wanted to say thank you, not only for this, but for giving us an article. Can you? We have a new. If the listeners don't know, we have a new little ATX Reds Press page, and we've had some really good articles. And Jeff gave us one. Jeff, you want to kind of give us a little rundown on that?
Yeah, so I was very grateful that you asked me to write an article. I'm absolutely privileged to do so. I kind of had this idea of something that could become a series potentially, with not just me contributing, but other people contributing as well. And I kind of come up with the idea of games of our lives. So wanted to sort of describe, really significant games in our lives as Liverpool supporters. So I've started off with my very first game, which was in 1975, which tells you how old I am. But very first game in 1975, which was a 2-2 draw against West Ham United. The game wasn't really significant to me. It was being in Anfield and being in close proximity to the Kop. So this gave me an opportunity to talk about my genesis as a Liverpool fan, really, how I became a Liverpool fan and what the club means to me. And hopefully what I've done is imparted a little bit of the magic of that first experience for me of being inside Anfield for the very, very first time. And I hope that, if fans like it, it will inspire fans to send you articles about the games of their lives, the greatest games of their lives. And hopefully it could become a great series for you. I'll certainly be contributing more as the months go by, as long as you'll have me.
Oh, yeah. Well, hopefully we won't get like 1,000 for 2005.
That is possible.
that
never thought of that. I wasn't thinking.
I thought about that yesterday. I was like, oh God, because we actually put a competition out on the Austin group to send us, their own articles, and we'll pick the winner, and we'll give them some Liverpool merchandise. So yeah, I can only imagine like how many. If we did it to all the Liverpool groups, how many 2005s we would get back.
You just have to run a competition for the best 2005 story. And have a judging panel, and that one gets published.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Days, yeah.
Well, Jeff, we really appreciate your time again. It's always an honor for you to come on our show, and
thank you very much.
And thank you, Nat, for just coming on and contributing the article, but also, you've been an ambassador for us out there on social media. So we really appreciate all that stuff too.
I'm absolutely honoured to be on, and wish you the very best of luck as you go forward. It's a great podcast. You've had some fantastic guests on, and this new avenue you're exploring with writing and articles. That's great. I'm really pleased to see that happening.
Yeah, maybe me and Steve will try our hand at colouring.
That's right.
We'll do the colouring on the articles.
I don't write anymore since I've been married. I don't write those love letters, so I'm done writing. No more poetry, no more letters, nothing.
You should publish those.
Oh yeah. No, thank you. Well, Jeff, it's been great, and one game down, 37 to go, and wish everyone the best, and it'll be exciting no matter what. That's for sure.
Definitely. Well, it always is with Klopp. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I think we've got a really good chance.
Yeah, as always, you're going to look at December and see kind of where we're at. And like we're saying though, there's no fans anywhere, so it's not just Anfield.
Of course,
City as well, Chelsea. If they need that little spur, to go on, they've just got to find an ear. And
that's right.
And with
although City have got lots of experience playing in front of empty stands.
Yeah, exactly. as they will for a long time, I'm sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the main difference is we have Klopp.
Yes.
So he can spare anything on. So yeah, and did you actually see Chris Waddle's prediction?
Do you know what? I think I kind of read there was some controversy about this, but didn't pay much attention. Was he got us for relegation or something?
No, he's got us third, but he's got United winning the league.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Yeah, but you only had to look at his choice of haircut in the in the 80s to know, don't pay attention to Chris Waddle. Yeah.
Well, you always know, you always knew when he was on the telly, that's for sure. I mean, without even seeing who was playing, you just saw him and his hair.
Yeah, so. Absolutely.
That's funny.
Well, thanks again, Jeff, for coming on. When is your book out in America? It's not till next March, right?
So you would think an author worth his salt would know that when he comes on an American podcast. Yes, I think you're right. I think it's in the new year. However, I have been assured by the publisher that if there's a group of supporters anywhere in the world who can get themselves together and put in a reasonable sized order, and I don't think they're talking dozens, I think they're talking, 10 books or something. Mm-hmm. If they put an order in to Pitch Publishing will ship them out.
Okay.
So if people are desperate to get hold of it, you can get it direct from the publisher. So I can share that information with you, and I'd be delighted if you'd share it around as well. But yeah, unfortunately, because of publishing schedules, they seem to come out later in other territories, which is really frustrating because I'd love it if they all came out the same time everywhere, but that's just not the way it is. But the publishers said they will help out if they can. Yeah,
well, it takes time to translate from Old English to New English, so
yeah, of course, yeah. From Scouse to English. Yeah.
That's right. To American.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, thanks, guys.
No,
thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, I really, really do appreciate it. And when yours and Kieran's book is out next year, get you both on.
Yeah. Be delighted to come on. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll arrange to have some shit out as our thank you to you for giving us the space to talk about it.
Well, I'm gonna after I get off here, I'm gonna have a go at Kieran.
Oh, to be fair to Kieran, he was sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, he did a good job, by the way.
Nice.
But I have to say, until next time, Jeff, stay safe. The family and everything.